What if the most powerful healing plants on the planet have been growing in Chinese medicine gardens for over 3,000 years, and modern science is only now catching up to prove they actually work? Most people have no idea that while we're filling prescriptions for inflammation, fatigue, and chronic disease, traditional Chinese medicine was already using specific plants that researchers are now confirming can transform your health at the cellular level. These aren't folk tales. They're plants with real clinical research behind them. And today, I'm going to show you 20 of them that will completely change the way you think about natural healing. Stick around, because number 7 on this list was used by Chinese emperors to stay sharp into old age, and modern neurologists are stunned by what it does to brain cells. And number 20 has been called the ultimate longevity herb in Chinese tradition for centuries, and clinical trials are now confirming why. If you want ancient wisdom backed by modern science delivered to you every week, hit that subscribe button right now and ring the notification bell. Welcome to Evergreen Garden. Let's get into it. Here are 20 ancient Chinese healing plants you should know, ranked from extraordinary to absolutely life-changing. 1. Astragalus huangqi, the immunity architect. In traditional Chinese medicine, Astragalus membranaceus has been the supreme immune tonic for over 2,000 years. It was called huangqi, meaning yellow senior, a title reserved for the most respected elder in the room. Chinese physicians prescribed it to strengthen what TCM calls wei qi, the body's protective shield against pathogens. Modern immunology uses different language but arrives at the same conclusion. Astragalus contains polysaccharides, saponins, and flavonoids shown in clinical research to increase white blood cell production, stimulate natural killer cell activity, and reduce the inflammatory cytokines that drive chronic disease. One of its key compounds, cycloastragenol, has attracted serious attention in longevity research for its ability to activate telomerase, the enzyme that maintains the protective caps on your chromosomes. Shorter telomeres mean faster aging. Astragalus may slow that process. That is published research, not marketing. Traditional use was simple and consistent. The root was simmered into broths and soups for several hours, the slow cooking drawing out its deep immune-supporting compounds. It was given to people recovering from illness, to the elderly, and to anyone entering a season of high stress or heavy exposure. The whole root slow-simmered in broth is still one of the most effective delivery methods available today, and it happens to be one of the most affordable as well. Think of it as the bodyguard your immune system has been waiting to hire, one with 2,000 years of verified references. 2. Reishi mushroom lingzi, the mushroom of immortality. Reishi was called lingji, the mushroom of spiritual potency, and access to it was reserved for emperors. Wild reishi appeared in imperial palace art, sacred scrolls, and the hands of Taoist immortals. Owning it was considered a sign of divine favor. Ganoderma lucidum contains over 400 bioactive compounds, including beta-glucans, triterpenoids, and ganoderic acids. The key research finding is that reishi modulates the immune system rather than simply stimulating it. That distinction matters. Stimulating an overactive immune system can worsen autoimmune conditions. Modulating means reishi helps the system find balance in either direction. Studies have shown reishi reduces cancer-related fatigue, lowers blood pressure, improves sleep quality, and protects the liver. Its anti-inflammatory triterpenes work through multiple pathways simultaneously, something no single pharmaceutical drug can replicate. Traditional preparation was dried mushrooms simmered in water for 30 to 45 minutes. The bitter taste signals the ganoderic acids that make it medicinal. Think of it as the emperor's secret to staying clear-headed when everything around them was chaos. 3. Ginseng ren shen, the root of heaven. Ask a traditional Chinese physician to name the single most important plant in the entire materia medica, and the answer is almost certainly ren shen, man root. Wild Panax ginseng roots shaped like the human body were used as currency and given as tribute to emperors. Ginseng contains ginsenosides found nowhere else in nature, studied extensively for adaptogenic effects that help the body maintain balance under physical and mental stress. Clinical trials show improvements in cognitive function, physical endurance, blood sugar regulation, and immune response. The research on ginseng for fatigue is among the strongest in all of botanical medicine, with multiple placebo-controlled studies showing meaningful reductions in cancer-related fatigue. Traditional use meant long, slow decoction, the roots simmered for hours and taken in small doses by the elderly. the recovering, and those under sustained stress. This was not a casual daily herb. It was reserved for when the body genuinely needed deep restoration. The reverence with which Chinese physicians prescribed it was not superstition. It was calibrated respect for a plant they had observed closely for centuries. Think of it as the root the ancient world treated like gold, and it turns out they were absolutely right. 4. Schisandra wu wei zi, the 5-flavor berry. Wu wei zi means 5-flavor berry because a single berry registers as sour, sweet, salty, bitter, and pungent simultaneously. In Chinese medical theory, a plant that touches all 5 flavors nourishes all 5 organ systems. Whether you accept that framework or not, the science behind Schisandra chinensis is genuinely remarkable. Its lignans, particularly schisandrin B, have demonstrated potent liver protective effects. Studies show they help regenerate liver tissue, improve liver enzyme levels in hepatitis patients, and protect against toxin-induced liver damage. Schisandra also shows adaptogenic properties, studied for improving mental accuracy and endurance under stress, and it was standard issue for cosmonauts in the Chinese space program. Traditional use focused on dried berries simmered daily over months and years. The effects are cumulative rather than immediate. Long-term users reported clear skin, sharp mental function, and sustained energy without stimulant crashes. The ancient world understood something modern biohackers are only recently discovering. The most powerful adaptogens reveal themselves slowly. Think of it as the one berry quietly doing more work inside your body than almost anything else on this list. 5. Dong Quai Dangui, the female ginseng. Dong Quai has been called the female ginseng for over 2,000 years, used for menstrual irregularity, menopause symptoms, blood deficiency, and recovery from childbirth with a consistency of use unmatched by almost any women's health herb globally. Angelica sinensis root contains ferulic acid and ligostility. Research shows ferulic acid has antispasmodic effects that explain the traditional use for menstrual cramps, alongside antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties that support cardiovascular health. Mild estrogenic effects may help manage hot flashes without the risks of pharmaceutical hormone therapy. The root is also rich in folate and compounds that support red blood cell production, explaining the classical use for iron deficiency anemia after heavy periods or childbirth. Traditional preparation involved simmering the root with jujube dates and longan fruit into a warming tonic taken consistently over months. It was not prescribed as a quick fix, but as a restorative practice for women whose bodies needed sustained, deep nourishment over time. Think of it as the herb that understood women's health 2,000 years before modern medicine started paying attention. 6. Goji berry goji zi, the longevity fruit. Most people eating goji berries and trail mix have no idea they are consuming an herb Chinese physicians prescribed for longevity and vision support for over 2,500 years. Lycium barbarum is one of the most frequently cited longevity herbs in classical TCM texts. Modern science has found that goji berries contain zeaxanthin and lutein at concentrations that make them one of the best dietary sources on Earth for eye health. Multiple clinical trials confirm that regular consumption significantly reduces the risk of age-related macular degeneration, one of the leading causes of blindness in older adults. The berries also contain unique polysaccharides called LBP that have demonstrated immune-modulating, neuroprotective, and anti-diabetic effects in research. Traditional use was daily and dietary. Goji berries were added to morning rice congee, simmered into soups at dinner, and steeped in warm water as a daily tea, not medicine taken when sick. Food eaten every day to prevent sickness from arriving in the first place. The distinction between food and medicine barely existed in classical Chinese practice, and goji was one of the reasons why. Think of it as the berry the ancient world ate for longevity, and that optometrists now agree deserves a place in your daily routine. 7. Lion's mane mushroom hu tu gu, the brain builder. Here we are at number 7, the one I teased at the beginning, lion's mane. Hericium erinaceus grows in cascading white tendrils unlike any other mushroom, and Chinese Buddhist monks revered it as food that supported mental clarity. It was served in imperial kitchens for centuries. Now neuroscientists are paying very close attention to why. Lion's mane contains hericenones and erinacines, compounds found nowhere else in nature, shown to stimulate nerve growth factor and brain-derived neurotrophic factor. These proteins support the growth and survival of neurons. A double-blind, Placebo-controlled human trial published in Phytotherapy Research found that adults with mild cognitive impairment who took lion's mane for 16 weeks showed significantly improved cognitive scores. The improvements reversed when supplementation stopped. That is peer-reviewed science, not supplement marketing. Additional research shows anti-anxiety effects, reduced gut-brain axis inflammation, and potential protective effects against neurodegenerative conditions. Think of it as the mushroom that emperors ate to stay sharp, and that modern brain researchers are finally starting to take seriously. 8. Turmeric Jianghuang, the golden healer. Curcuma longa has been used in Chinese and Ayurvedic medicine for pain, inflammation, and liver support for at least 3,000 years, called Jianghuang, river yellow, for the vivid gold of its flesh. Over 3,000 published studies now examine curcumin, its primary active compound. The consistent finding is powerful anti-inflammatory action through inhibition of NF-κB, one of the central molecular switches that activates inflammatory gene expression. Clinical trials show turmeric reduces osteoarthritis symptoms, comparably to ibuprofen in some studies, without the gastrointestinal side effects. Research also confirms benefits for inflammatory bowel conditions, metabolic syndrome, and liver function. The practical key is bioavailability. Curcumin is poorly absorbed alone. Combining it with black pepper increases absorption by up to 2,000%. Traditional cuisine instinctively combined turmeric with warming spices, delivering the combination that maximized the medicine. Think of it as the golden root that 3,000 years of healers knew was doing something remarkable, and that modern pharmacology is still trying to fully replicate. 9. Chrysanthemum yuhua, the eye protector. Chrysanthemum flowers appear in Chinese art, poetry, and imperial imagery everywhere. But Chrysanthemum morifolium is also one of the most commonly prescribed herbs in TCM, used for eye strain, headaches, and the effects of what Chinese physicians called rising liver heat, which maps closely to hypertension and stress-related inflammation. Research has focused on its luteolin and apigenin content, flavonoids with documented anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and mild antihypertensive effects. Studies on eye health show chrysanthemum extract reduces oxidative stress in retinal cells and may protect against screen and UV damage. Chinese scholars were drinking this tea to protect their eyes from candlelight strain 2,000 years ago. Traditional preparation is beautifully simple. Dried flowers steeped in hot water for 5 minutes. Still one of the most consumed herbal teas in China today, taken in the afternoon for eye strain or in the evening as a calming anti-inflammatory drink. Think of it as the flower that 2,000 years of scholars drank to protect their eyes, and that screen-addicted modern eyes desperately need. 10. Jujube date da zhao, the calm in a storm. The jujube date is one of the most universally used herbs in the entire TCM pharmacopoeia, not because it is the most dramatic medicine, but because it calms the nervous system, nourishes the blood, and makes every other herb it is combined with work better. Ziziphus jujuba fruit contains jujubosides, saponins with demonstrated sedative and anxiolytic effects. Studies show jujube extract reduces anxiety, improves sleep quality, and lowers stress biomarkers. The traditional use for insomnia and restless heart maps almost perfectly to what modern sleep research confirms the compounds are doing. Jujube is also extraordinarily rich in vitamin C, more per gram than most citrus fruits when fresh. Traditional use involved adding 6 to 10 dried dates to virtually every tonic formula as a harmonizing herb that smoothed the harsh edges of stronger medicines and made the whole formula gentle enough to take consistently over months. Think of it as the herb that holds everything together when the body and mind are fraying at the edges. Now, if you are finding this valuable and realizing how much healing wisdom has been hiding in plain sight, hit that like button right now. It helps this video reach people who are ready to take their health seriously. If you have not subscribed to Evergreen Garden yet, click that subscribe button and ring the bell. We cover the science and tradition behind the world's most powerful healing plants every single week. Let's keep going, because we are just getting to the ones that will genuinely surprise you. 11. Hawthorn shanja, the heart's best friend. Hawthorn berries are eaten candied on street skewers across China today, but Crataegus pinnatifida has been prescribed for heart health in TCM for over 1,000 years. Shanja was the physician's herb for what we now call cardiovascular risk factors, long before anyone had a word for cholesterol. Multiple clinical trials have demonstrated that hawthorn extract improves exercise tolerance in heart failure patients, lowers blood pressure, reduces LDL oxidation, and improves coronary blood flow. Germany's Commission E, the scientific body that formally evaluates botanical medicines for clinical use, has approved hawthorn for early-stage heart failure. That is a high bar of evidence, and hawthorn clears it. Traditional preparation included dried berries, simmered as a tart tea, and eaten as a digestive aid after heavy meals. Hawthorn stimulates stomach acid and digestive enzyme production, making it valuable after the rich, slow-cooked meals central to Chinese dining culture. Think of it as the berry your heart wants you eating every day, and that cardiologists in Germany have officially endorsed. 12. Licorice root Ganxiao, the great harmonizer. Licorice root is the most prescribed herb in the entire history of traditional Chinese medicine. Glycyrrhiza urulensis, called Ganxiao, appears in more classical formulas than any other plant, not because it is the most powerful individually, but because it makes every other herb in a formula work better, while adding its own substantial benefit. The active compound glycyrrhizin has documented antiviral, anti-inflammatory, and liver protective effects. Studies show it inhibits replication of several viruses, including influenza, and intravenous glycyrrhizin has been studied in Japan for chronic hepatitis treatment. Licorice also inhibits the enzyme that breaks down cortisol, effectively extending the activity of the body's own anti-inflammatory hormones and explaining the TCM use for fatigue and adrenal depletion. Important note: high doses taken long-term can raise blood pressure. TCM always used it in combination and at appropriate doses. Think of it as the diplomat of the herbal world, the plant that gets every other herb working together at its absolute best. 13. Cinnamon bark rugi, the warming medicine. True cinnamon bark, Cinnamomum cassia, is one of the most warming herbs in the TCM system. Rugui was prescribed for cold extremities, low back pain, fatigue, and poor circulation, conditions Chinese physicians associated with yang deficiency. Modern science is surprisingly specific about why it works. Cinnamon contains cinnamaldehyde, shown in multiple randomized controlled trials to improve insulin sensitivity and lower fasting blood sugar in type 2 diabetic patients. The effect is modest but consistent. Cinnamon also has potent antimicrobial properties against foodborne pathogens, including E. coli and Salmonella, reduces triglycerides, and has documented anti-inflammatory effects throughout the body. Traditional use involved simmering the bark in teas and using it generously in warming stews prescribed specifically for people whose bodies needed circulation and internal warmth restored. Think of it as the bark that warms you from the inside out, and that modern endocrinologists are now studying seriously for blood sugar management. 14. Mugwort ai ye, the meridian healer. Mugwort, Artemisia argyri, called ai ye, is central to one of Chinese medicine's most distinctive practices, moxibustion. The dried leaves are burned near acupuncture points to stimulate healing through warmth. But mugwort has direct pharmacological properties beyond moxibustion. It contains artemisinin-related compounds and volatile oils with documented anti-inflammatory and antispasmodic effects. Ai ye was prescribed internally for menstrual cramping and abnormal uterine bleeding, and research confirms the antispasmodic effects on smooth muscle that explain the traditional relief for menstrual pain. The artemisinin connection carries historic weight. The 2015 Nobel Prize in Medicine was awarded for the discovery of artemisinin from a related Artemisia plant as a treatment for malaria, a discovery that began with research into classical TCM texts. The Nobel laureate explicitly credited the traditional literature as the starting point. Think of it as the herb that helped give the world one of its most important anti-malarial drugs, and whose full potential is still being uncovered. 15. Wolfberry leaf, goji, the overlooked companion. Most people know the goji berry, but the leaves of the same plant, Lycium barbarum, have their own distinct medicinal profile that Chinese physicians valued separately. Goji was prescribed as a cooling, liver-nourishing herb with a particular reputation for improving visual acuity and reducing skin inflammation. Modern analysis shows wolfberry leaves contain betaine, zeaxanthin, and rutin in significant concentrations. Rutin strengthens capillary walls, reduces platelet aggregation, and has demonstrated anti-inflammatory effects. Betaine has been studied for liver protection and homocysteine metabolism. Elevated homocysteine is an independent cardiovascular risk factor, and dietary betaine is one of the most effective nutritional ways to lower it. Traditional use involved the fresh young spring leaves cooked as a vegetable, and the dried leaves used as tea year-round. the line between food and medicine was intentionally blurred. The most sustainable medicine was eaten every day without thinking of it as medicine at all. Think of it as the part of the plant everyone overlooked while reaching for the berries, and it turns out the leaves were working just as hard. 16. Ginger Shengjiang, the universal medicine. Ginger appears in more classical Chinese medical formulas than perhaps any herb except licorice root. Zingiber officinale was so foundational that TCM divided it into two distinct medicines. Fresh ginger, Shengjiang, for colds and nausea. Dried ginger, Ganjiang, for chronic cold conditions and circulatory weakness. The drying process converts gingerols into shogols, which are more potent anti-inflammatory compounds. Modern chemistry validates that ancient distinction precisely. Clinical evidence for ginger is extensive. Randomized controlled trials confirm effectiveness for nausea in pregnancy, chemotherapy-induced nausea, motion sickness, and post-operative nausea. For osteoarthritis, ginger extracts show anti-inflammatory effects comparable to NSAIDs in some trials. Research also shows meaningful improvements in fasting glucose and insulin sensitivity. Traditional use meant ginger was in everything. Every herbal tea, every medicine formula, every warming broth. It was the first herb a Chinese physician reached for at the onset of a cold. Think of it as the most useful medicine in the kitchen, the one that 3,000 years of Chinese physicians agreed was too important to ever leave out. 17. Chinese skullcap, Huangqin, the inflammation extinguisher. Huangqin, Scutellaria baicalensis. This is the one I have been building toward. Used in Chinese medicine for over 2,000 years for fever, inflammation, and infection, and modern biomedical research is producing genuinely striking findings. The root contains baecaline and baecaline, flavonoids studied intensively for anti-inflammatory, antiviral, antibacterial, and neuroprotective effects. Baecaline has shown laboratory activity against influenza, HIV, SARS-related coronaviruses, and antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Pharmaceutical researchers are actively studying baecaline as a scaffold for new drug development. Its anti-inflammatory action inhibits multiple pathways simultaneously, including NF-κB and COX-2, the same pathway targeted by ibuprofen, but through a different mechanism. Traditional use prescribed Huangqin for high fevers, dysentery, and severe infections. It was a core herb in classical Chinese hospitals managing serious infectious disease. Think of it as the root that ancient physicians used to fight infections, and that modern virologists are now examining very carefully. 18. Lotus, Hihua, the sacred medicine. Nelumbo nucifera is one of the most symbolically significant plants in all of Asian culture, and Chinese physicians used every single part of it as a distinct medicine. The seeds, lianzi, contain the alkaloid nephrine, which has shown antiarrhythmic effects in research. They were prescribed for insomnia, anxiety, and palpitations, and modern analysis of nephrine provides biological mechanisms for all three traditional uses. The lotus leaf, He has been used for centuries for weight management. Clinical studies found that lotus leaf extract reduces fat absorption and lowers triglycerides and LDL cholesterol by inhibiting lipase activity, the enzyme that digests dietary fat. The rhizome is consumed as a mineral-rich food that supports digestion and sustained energy. Every part of the lotus was a different medicine. Chinese physicians built an entire pharmacopoeia from a single species. That observational precision, refined over centuries, is the hallmark of what makes this tradition extraordinary. Think of it as the plant that gave Buddhist monks a symbol of enlightenment and gave Chinese doctors one of the most versatile medicines in their entire pharmacy. 19. Poria mushroom fu ling, the quiet healer. Poria cocos, fu ling, is the herb that does not announce itself. No immediate warmth like ginger, no noticeable mental lift like lion's mane. What Poria does is quieter, deeper, and potentially more important over the long run. A fungus that forms dense masses on pine tree roots, Poria has been used in Chinese medicine for over 2,000 years as a tonic for gut function, nervous system regulation, and deep immunity. Modern research confirms all three. Poria polysaccharides significantly enhance macrophage and natural killer cell activity, building the kind of cellular immunity that changes long-term resilience without producing noticeable acute effects. It has been studied as a cancer care adjunct for its ability to reduce chemotherapy side effects. For the nervous system, Poria contains compounds that modulate GABA receptors through gentler, non-dependency-forming mechanisms than pharmaceutical options, with studies confirming meaningful anxiolytic and sedative effects. Think of it as the quiet healer working in the background that you only notice when you realize how much better you have been feeling for months. 20. He Xiao Wu Fo Tea, the longevity root. And here we are. Number 20, the one I saved for last. He Xiao Wu, Polygonum multiflorum. Chinese legend says this root turned a dying old man's hair from white back to black and restored his vitality completely. The name literally means black-haired Mr. He. We should treat legends as legends, but the science behind this plant is genuinely interesting and genuinely complex. He Xiao Wu contains stillbean glycosides with antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties and preliminary evidence of neuroprotective activity. Research shows improvements in lipid profiles and reduction of arterial stiffness. Properly prepared He Xiao Wu, processed through a traditional curing method with black bean broth, is the form used in TCM. That processing reduces the potentially liver-stressing anthraquinones and concentrates the therapeutically active stillbeanies. Here is where honesty requires a direct statement. Raw or improperly prepared He Xiao Wu has been associated with liver toxicity in documented cases. This is a real safety consideration. It should only be used in properly prepared form, at appropriate doses, and ideally with guidance from a qualified practitioner. This is a powerful plant that demands respect, not casual use. Used correctly, He Xiao Wu represents the philosophy running through every herb on this list. The most powerful healing happens slowly, deeply, and consistently, not overnight, through months and years of nourishing the body with what it has always needed. Think of it as the plant that embodies the entire philosophy of Chinese medicine itself: patient, deep, and built for the long game. 20 plants. 3,000 years of accumulated wisdom, a tradition so carefully observed that modern science is still arriving at the same conclusions, one clinical trial at a time. Here is what I want you to take away. The physicians who built traditional Chinese medicine were not primitive. They were extraordinarily observant. They paid attention across lifetimes and generations to what healed people and what sustained them. And they built their entire culture, their agriculture, their philosophy, and their daily practices around those observations. They documented it with a precision that modern researchers are only now fully appreciating. Astragalus modulates immunity. Reishi balances the immune response. Ginseng supports the body under sustained stress. Lion's mane supports neurons. Hawthorn protects the heart. Goji protects the aging eye. The ancient texts were right. They just did not have the language of molecules and clinical trials to explain the mechanisms. The mechanisms were not the point. The healing was the point. One thing before you go: quality and sourcing matter enormously with these plants. The difference between properly sourced authenticated Chinese herbs and a vague label on a discount supplement shelf is not a small difference. It is the difference between medicine and marketing. There is no shortcut here. I have linked trusted sources in the description below, and I encourage you to read them carefully before purchasing anything. And one final important note: several herbs on this list, particularly He Xiao Wu, licorice root, and high-dose ginger, have contraindications and interactions with pharmaceutical medications. Please consult with a qualified healthcare provider and treat these plants with the same respect the classical physicians always did. Powerful medicine used correctly is healing. Used without care, any medicine, natural or pharmaceutical, can cause harm. The ancient physicians knew this. They prescribed with context, with relationship, and with follow-up. That wisdom is worth preserving too. Drop a comment below and tell me which plant surprised you most. Are you team ancient mushrooms, team adaptogenic roots, or team everyday healing herbs? I read every single comment and I genuinely love hearing from you. If you have not subscribed to Evergreen Garden yet, hit that subscribe button right now and ring that notification bell. We post every week and we are just getting started. See you in the next one.